You can tell the torque right away, man. By one gear, you're already car length and fucking pulling, man. And I'm same start and everything, you know what I mean? Very nice. Sounds fucking sick, dude.
What's up? It's been a few days, man. Terrible weather. As you guys can see, we went from having one nice day where we took the head off on the turbo Civic, and now it's just absolutely garbage. We did some work. Let me show you some of the things that we're doing. We stuffed some shop towels into the cylinders here because we're gonna scrape off and make sure we clean the deck of this surface of this block, make sure it's nice and clean. And then again, we're gonna check for flatness with my flat blade and feeler gauges. I'm gonna rotate the crankshaft assembly. It spins pretty freely. If I go top dead center, here's the interesting part. See, cylinder 1, top dead center, nice and flat. Cylinder 1, it's like 2 mils lower because of that bent rod. It's not moving all the way up. And I think that rod is hitting the piston once we move up, and that's where our knock was coming from. And again, it's great that we caught that and didn't put much driving miles on the vehicle. Heading into the garage, it's an absolute mess. However, we did have some progress. I did clean off my timing chain cover. We cleaned whatever we could on the inside, kind of scraped the gasket off, and then we cleaned off, as you can see right over here, the oil pan, nice and clean. Again, that's where we tapped it for the turbo feed or turbo drain. It's not bad. We do have a little crack over here that we had for like 10 years. You can see that crack right over there a little bit, but it's not leaking. And then obviously we cracked the oil pan just a little bit right there by the oil drain bung, but it got to the point where it's barely leaking, so I'm not even worried about that. So that's pretty clean and good. I have been messing with a little bit amount of things here. So the head, guys, the head, I got the feeler gauges at Harbor Freights, and we got a lot of feeler gauges here. We got the 3000s, and I've been checking for flatness once the gasket was clean. And to be honest with you guys, if I measure it this way here on 1, 2, 3, 4, if I measure it this way or this way, it comes out smooth, right? But this isn't long enough to measure the whole deck. But when I try to measure the whole deck, like here for example, I do have some bigger gap right on by cylinder 1 and 2. I do have a little bit more clearance than the 3000s. Again, these things may be flat, may not be flat. It's really hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna clean this off and try winging it without decking or, you know, machining this surface. So we'll go from there. Yeah, we're winging it. We got the head gasket that came in today. Plastigage came in today. The torque angle gauge came in today. We bought a bunch of silicone gasket maker and whatnot that we need to make this work. Big problem with the bearing though. I'm trying to identify all the bearings and everything on the engine, the main bearings or the rod bearings in this case, because every cylinder doesn't have the same clearances. It all depends. For example, my cylinder 1 rod is marked number 2. Cylinder 2 rod is marked number 3. Both those clearances are different. So, it's a mess. And I'm trying to find the crankshaft journal clearances, and I just can't find it for the life of me on the identification on the crankshaft, and I'm kind of thrown off in a loop with how to progress this because I don't have tools to measure the bearing clearances and whatnot. So I'm kind of hoping and trying to gauge of the block, already having it pre-printed so I can just get the right clearances installed and we can go from there. So it's frustrating, very frustrating. I've been under the car for some time already, and it's just a nightmare, man. Transmission side. B, C, D, B, B. And we're working on this block every day, almost a couple hours after work every day. And yeah, the longer this goes, the harder it's gonna be to put everything back the way it used to be, because I'll probably forget. But yeah, man, we got the new piston cleaned up. It's at home. We took all the rings off. I got the compression ring and whatnot right over here, just cleaning it off. We're cleaning the grooves of the piston off because it was congested. I'm still not sure if I'm going to use my piston or the piston that's the replacement used piston. The head gasket, this is the old one. I'm going to take it home, compare it with the new one. The new one is a Fel Pro head gasket, and from the research I've done, Fel Pro head gaskets are pretty good, so maybe even seal better than stock. Again, we need this to seal better in case any warpage between the block and the head. And I just found out, and I understand now the reason why heads warp a lot more than blocks, because blocks are solid, like a solid piece of aluminum, whereas the head, all these passages for the oil, for the coolant to go through, it makes the head more hollow. And because it's more hollow, it has more ease of flexing a little bit. So that's why probably your head is more likely to warp compared to, again, this solid piece of metal, which has less chances of doing so. So that's the update today. I'm still gonna go under the car, look for the identification marks on the journals. I may clean the deck here scrape it with a razor blade, and probably head home and do some more research. And I'll update you guys more when I get back with progress. Alright guys, I'm cleaning off the lips right here at top dead center. I'm trying to clean off the ridges that have developed over the years, and I'm also going to try to clean out the pistons a little bit here. Turn the crank so at least some of them are on top dead center here. Alright, we'll knock out 2 and 3, clean it off really nicely. We're gonna clean off the journal and... All right, well, hold up a second. You're probably asking yourself like this: Bully Kid, you said you don't have really in-depth automotive experience. How are you tackling a cylinder head removal repair here? And to be honest with you guys, thanks to emanualonline.com, I have the whole manual for the entire car. It's a manual that is fully downloadable PDF format, and it includes over 5,000 pages of step-by-step instructions that include every little detail that you might miss. It has torque specifications and correct processes so you don't mess up. And doing a job just like this with a blown motor, removing the cylinder head, I definitely do not want to make any mistakes. So go ahead and check out emanuelsonline.com. I have an affiliate link in the description below. It's a very affordable PDF. It's the same thing that dealerships use to repair vehicles. So you definitely don't want to tackle a job like this without one of these manuals. Got the rod off right over here. I'm just gonna spray some brake cleaner on both of these surfaces. We just push the rod up a little bit right there. As you can see, I'm able to move it. We're gonna clean off all those areas with the brake cleaner, and then we're gonna put our Plastigage on the bottom here, torque it, check the clearances. This is the big thing. We need to know the stock clearances here, since we were unable to get the journal bearing, rod bearing identification marks on the block. I'm not sure what they are exactly, so that's what we're gonna go with. The top bearing looks pretty good too. I don't see any really big wear marks on it. Here's the Plastigage. We're gonna pull it out from here. There you go. It's just a very fine little strip. We're gonna place it right here in the middle. You guys see that? Now we're gonna put this back on, torque it to spec, 14 pounds, and then after the 14 pounds they want us to turn it 90 degrees, so we bought a torque angle gauge, 90 degrees angle. They are torque to yield bolts, so you have to be cautious of that. They do stretch, and the head bolts and the rod bolts are all torque to yield, and if they exceed a certain amount, you're not supposed to reuse them again. Alright, we got the gauge there. Let's check the bearing clearances. You guys can see it right over there. You see that? That's a really good one up top. Not the greatest on the bearing itself. So we're gonna measure it on the journal here. All right, real quick before I end the video, I do want to talk about two particular subjects. This is the crankshaft journal. As you can see, there is marrowing on it. It is no longer micro polished as it once was, and I'm assuming because of that bent rod and all the excessive pressure on the bearings, it created some marrowing. However, aside from the marrowing, there is no scratches on the surface and nothing that I can feel if I run my fingernail across it. So we'll get back to that. I just wanted to throw it out there, what's the situation with the journals. And I didn't record any footage of measuring the clearances. However, this is where you are supposed to get your OEM clearance specifications. However, once we did measure the clearances here with that bent rod and the bearing torque to particular sequence and torque settings, we were actually tighter on the bearing clearances.
I ain't here for the money, I ain't here for the fame. Though it might be nice to own a jet plane, I'ma do it all for you. Come along and see it's true, but the world is pretty cold. You might need a sweater too. I'ma put a ride on ya. Kid from California, trying to make it in life. In school they never taught ya. Dreams a lot.